The crack of a man's skull hitting marble was the loudest sound Sloane Beckett had ever made in public. 1 second, Nico Caruso, the undisputed king of Miami's underworld, was gripping her arm hard enough to leave bruises, laughing in her face like she was nothing. The next second, he was flat on his back between the white tablecloths, gasping at the chandelier, and she was standing over him with her apron still perfectly tied. "I told you to let go," she whispered, and that was the moment she knew her old life was officially over. 3 hours earlier, the evening had started like every other shift at Aurelia, the kind of restaurant where a single appetizer cost more than Sloane's weekly grocery budget. She pushed through the service doors, balancing 4 plates of Wagyu tartare, her black flat silent against the polished floor. She'd been working here 6 weeks. 6 weeks of "yes, sir," and "right away, ma'am," and swallowing every instinct that told her to scan the room for threats instead of empty water glasses. She was 26 with sharp cheekbones, dark auburn hair pulled into a low knot, and the kind of stillness that made people uncomfortable if they looked too long. The other waitresses thought she was shy. The manager thought she was weird. Neither was true. Sloane Beckett was hiding, and she was very, very good at it. Her brother Tommy was the reason. 11 years old, hooked up to a dialysis machine 3 times a week at Miami General, waiting for a kidney that insurance wouldn't cover and the transplant list wouldn't prioritize. Every dollar Sloane earned went into an envelope under her mattress. Every smile she faked at this job bought Tommy another week. She'd been someone else before this, someone dangerous. But that person was supposed to be dead. "Table 9 needs a refresh," the hostess muttered as Sloane passed. "And don't make eye contact with him. That's Caruso." Sloane didn't need the warning. She'd clocked Nico Caruso the moment he walked in. Everyone had. He moved through the restaurant like he owned the air inside it, which, in a sense, he did. The Caruso family controlled everything south of the Palmetto Expressway. Drugs, construction, shipping, the judges who looked the other way. Nico had inherited the empire at 29 when his father caught 3 bullets on a fishing boat, and in the 5 years since, he'd tripled it. He was sitting in the private alcove by the window, flanked by 2 men who looked like they'd been carved from concrete. One of them, a thick-necked enforcer named Vince, had a jaw like a cinder block and eyes that tracked every person who came within 10 feet. Sloane approached with the bottle of Barolo. "Your wine, Mr. Caruso." He didn't acknowledge her. He was talking into his phone in low, rapid Italian. She poured. Her hand was steady. She started to leave. "Wait." His voice stopped her like a wall. He ended the call and looked at her for the first time. His eyes were the color of dark honey, sharp and assessing, the kind of eyes that missed nothing. "You poured without asking me to taste first. You ordered the same bottle last Tuesday," Sloane said, "and the Tuesday before that. You don't need to taste it." The silence that followed was nuclear. Vince shifted forward. The second guard put his hand inside his jacket. Nico Caruso stared at her. Then a slow, dangerous smile crept across his face. "You've been watching me. I've been doing my job. Sit down. I'm working." I said, "Sit down." He kicked the chair across from him out with his foot. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command dressed in a silk suit. "With respect, Mr. Caruso, I have other tables." His smile vanished. He leaned forward, elbows on the white linen, and when he spoke, his voice had dropped to the register that made grown men flinch. "You know who I am. You know what I do. And you're telling me no, I'm telling you I have other tables." He studied her for a long beat. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not anger, curiosity, the predatory kind. "What's your name?" "Sloane," he repeated, like he was filing it away. "You don't flinch, you don't flirt, you don't fidget. Every other waitress in this place shakes when she brings my food. But you pour wine like you're diffusing a bomb. Steady hands. No wasted movement." He stood up. He was tall, over 6 feet, with the build of a man who still trained even though he could pay people to fight for him. He walked around the table until he was standing too close. She could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, layered over the faint scent of cigar smoke. "Who are you, Sloane? Because you're not a waitress." "I'm exactly a waitress. Can I bring you anything else?" He grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron, sudden and deliberate. Testing. The room shrank, every nerve ending in Sloane's body lit up like a switchboard. The old training screamed at her, break the grip, strike the throat, create distance. But the new Sloane, the one who needed this job, who needed the money, who needed to stay invisible for Tommy, forced herself to stand still. "Let go of me," she said quietly. "Make me." His voice was almost playful, but his eyes were dead serious. He was used to people folding. He wanted to see what she was made of. "I'm asking you politely, Mr. Caruso, and I'm telling you that polite doesn't work in my world." He pulled her closer. The wine glass on the table wobbled. "In my world, you take what you want or you lose it. So what are you going to do, Sloane? Cry? Scream? Call your manager." The staff frozen behind the service door. The guards tensed and ready. Something inside her cracked. Not broke. Cracked, like ice on a river in spring, and underneath was the cold, rushing current of who she really was. "Last chance," she said. Her voice had changed. The customer service softness was gone, replaced by something flat and precise. "Nico." "Or what?" She moved. Her free hand clamped over his wrist. She stepped into his body, dropping her center of gravity, and twisted. The joint lock was textbook, a wrist reversal she'd drilled 10,000 times in a life she was supposed to have forgotten. Nico's eyes went wide. Pain shot up his arm. Before he could react, she swept his leg and used his own weight to slam him onto the marble floor. The sound was deafening in the silent restaurant. She pinned his arm behind his back and leaned close to his ear. "I told you to let go. 3 seconds." The whole thing had taken 3 seconds. Vince exploded out of his chair, reaching for his waistband. The second guard lunged. "Don't!" Sloan snapped, twisting Nico's arm a degree further. He hissed through his teeth. "I'll dislocate his shoulder before you clear the holster." Vince froze. He looked at his boss, pinned on the floor by a woman who weighed 130 pounds. "Stand down." Nico's voice was strained but controlled. His cheek was pressed against the cold marble. "I said stand down, Vince." Sloan released him and stepped back in one fluid motion. She smoothed her apron. Her hands weren't shaking. They never did. Nico rolled over, sat up slowly, and rubbed his shoulder. He looked up at her from the floor, and the expression on his face wasn't rage. It was fascination. The kind of fascination that's more dangerous than a bullet. "Well," he said softly, "that's the most interesting thing that's happened to me in years." Sloan turned and walked toward the kitchen. She was done. She'd blown her cover over a rich thug with a god complex, and now she needed to disappear. Again. She'd grab her bag from the locker, text the neighbor to watch Tommy, and be in a different city by morning. "If you walk out that door," Nico called, getting to his feet, "I will find you. I own this city, Sloan. Every camera, every cop, every block. You can't hide from me." She paused at the kitchen threshold. She looked back over her shoulder. "You can try, but next time it won't be your shoulder." She was gone before he could respond. 40 minutes later, Sloan was in her studio apartment in Little Haiti, shoving clothes into a duffel bag. The apartment was sparse. A mattress on the floor, a hot plate, Tommy's drawings taped to the wheel. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd packed a go-bag 100 times. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She answered. "Miss Beckett," the voice was calm, professional. "Please don't hang up." "My name is Vince Delacroce. I work for Mr. Caruso. He'd like to meet with you. I'm not interested. He's prepared to pay for your brother's transplant, the full amount, tonight." Sloane's hand froze on the zipper of her bag. Her blood went cold. They'd found Tommy. They'd found the hospital. They'd done it in 40 minutes. "How did you?" "Mr. Caruso is very motivated. He has a proposal. 1 meeting, 1 hour. If you don't like what you hear, you walk, and the transplant offer stands regardless." She should have run. Every fiber of training told her to run. But she looked at the wall, at Tommy's drawing of the two of them on a beach, stick figures with huge smiles, and the word "someday" written across the top in crayon. Where? The meeting was at Nico's private estate on Star Island, a Mediterranean-style compound surrounded by water and guarded by men with automatic weapons. Sloan was escorted through a courtyard lined with palm trees and into a study that smelled of leather and old books. Nico was standing by a window, his jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbows. There was a bruise on his wrist from where she'd wrenched it. He turned when she entered, and his eyes traveled over her. She'd changed into jeans and a black t-shirt, her hair still in the same knot. No makeup, no pretense. "Boss." Out Vince left. The door closed. They were alone. "Sit," Nico said, gesturing to a leather chair. This time it was almost polite. "I'll stand." He smiled faintly. "Of course you will." He poured 2 fingers of something amber and slid the glass across the desk. "I ran your name through every database my people could access. State records, federal, international. You want to know what I found?" "Nothing," Sloan said. "Nothing," he confirmed. "Sloan Beckett doesn't exist before 14 months ago. No birth certificate, no school records, no social media. Your social security number belongs to a woman who died in a house fire in Oregon. You're a ghost. I value my privacy. You're trained, military or intelligence. The way you moved tonight, that wasn't karate class. That was the kind of thing they teach at Fort Bragg or Langley." He walked around the desk, leaning against the front edge, close enough that she could have touched him. "So here's what I think. I think you're running from something bigger than me, and I think whatever it is has something to do with why a woman with your skills is pouring wine for $12 an hour." Sloan said nothing. "I also think," Nico continued, his voice softening, "that your brother is the only thing in this world you care about, and that makes you vulnerable. Is that a threat? It's an observation." He held her gaze. "I don't threaten women, Sloanes. I threaten men who threaten women. There's a difference. What do you want?" "I have a problem." Someone inside my organization is feeding information to Yuri Petrov. You know the name? She did. Yuri Petrov ran the Bratva operation out of Fort Lauderdale. He'd been pushing into Miami for months. Drug routes, protection rackets, port access. Petrov has gotten too close too fast, Nico said. He knows things he shouldn't. Shipment schedules, meeting locations, the names of my contacts in customs. I have a mole, and I can't figure out who it is because the leak could be anyone, including the people I'd normally ask to investigate, eh? So you need an outsider. I need someone who can't be bought, threatened, or turned. Someone with no loyalty to anyone in my organization. He looked at her. Someone who already proved she's not afraid of me. And in return, Tommy gets his kidney, the best surgeon in the country. Private room, full recovery, no strings. The silence stretched between them. Sloane's chest ached. She had $4,200 in that envelope under her mattress. The transplant cost $280,000. She'd done the math 1,000 times, and every time, the number was a wall she couldn't climb. One job, she said. I find your mole. You save my brother. Then I'm gone. Deal. Nico extended his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, and he didn't let go immediately. Welcome to the family, Sloane. Try not to break anything else. No promise the next 72 hours. Sloane embedded herself into the Caruso operation under the cover of personal security consultant. It gave her access to the inner circle, the meetings, the books, the conversations that happened after midnight when the guards thought nobody was listening. She met Gianni Ferraro on her first full day. He was Nico's consigliere, a silver-haired man in his 60s with the gentle smile of a parish priest and the dead eyes of a shark. He'd been with the Caruso family for 3 decades, a fixture, a pillar, the man who'd held the organization together after Nico's father was killed. Be careful with that one, Nico said when they were alone. He's the only man alive I trust completely. Sloane filed that away. In her experience, the person you trusted completely was always the one holding the knife. She spent nights in Nico's study, going through encrypted files, financial records, communication logs. During the day, she shadowed him, watching how his people moved, who made calls they shouldn't, who had new watches or new cars. The proximity was the problem. Working beside Nico Caruso was like standing next to an open flame. He was magnetic in a way that had nothing to do with power and everything to do with presence. He remembered the names of his driver's children. He sent flowers to his mother's grave every Friday. He read poetry, actual poetry, dog-eared volumes of Neruda on his nightstand. And he watched Sloane like she was the only real thing in a room full of illusions. You're staring again, she said one night, looking up from a laptop in his study. I'm trying to figure you out, he replied from the couch, a glass in his hand. Every time I think I have you, you shift. Maybe you should stop trying. I can't. He sat up, setting the glass down. You're the first person who's walked into my life and didn't want something from me. I want $280,000 for a kidney transplant. That's for Tommy. What do you want? For you? She didn't know how to. On the 4th night, she found it. A series of encrypted messages routed through a burner phone, registered to a shell company in the Caymans. The messages contained shipment times, warehouse addresses, names of Caruso soldiers. They'd been sent to a number linked to Petrov's operation. She traced the phone's GPS pings. They clustered in one location, Gianni Ferraro's house. Sloane sat back in her chair, her stomach dropping. She was right. The pillar, the trusted one, the father figure. She brought the evidence to Nico at 2 a.m. She laid it out clearly, clinically, the way she'd been trained to deliver a briefing. The phone records, the GPS data. The Cayman Shell Company tied to a known Bratva front. Nico didn't speak for a long time. He stood at the window, his back to her, and she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fists clenched and unclenched. 30 years, he finally said. He held me at my father's funeral. He taught me how to run this family. I know. Are you sure? I'm sure. I'm sorry. He turned around. His eyes were wet, but his jaw was granite. Don't be sorry. Be right. Because if you're wrong, I just lost my brother for nothing. I'm not wrong, Nico. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with the investigation. It was recognition. 2 people who had been betrayed by the systems that were supposed to protect them. What do we do? He asked. We set a trap. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Sloane fed Gianni 3 different pieces of false intel, each describing a different meeting location for a fictitious deal. If Petrov showed up at the location only Gianni knew about, it was proof. 24 hours later, Petrov's men raided a warehouse on the Miami River, the exact address Sloane had given Gianni. Nico was quiet when she told him. He poured himself a drink. Then he poured another. Bring him to the house, he said. Gianni arrived expecting a routine briefing. He walked into the study smiling, carrying a bottle of wine, the picture of loyalty. Then he saw Sloane standing beside Nico's desk with a laptop open to his phone records. The smile died. Dante's ghost, Gianni said, invoking Nico's father. Whatever she's told you, it's a lie. She's the outsider. She's been here a week. 30 years of trust, Nico said, his voice barely above a whisper. And all it took was one woman with a laptop to unravel it. She's playing you. Can't you see? I traced the burner phone to your house, Gianni. Sloane cut in, her voice level. I fed you the River Street warehouse address yesterday afternoon, only you. Petrov's men showed up there 6 hours later. Would you like to explain that? Gianni's mask crumbled. His shoulders sagged. For a moment he looked like what he was, an old man caught in his own web. He offered me a retirement, Gianni whispered. Petrov. A villa on the Black Sea, 10 million in a Swiss account. I'm 63, Nico. I've given everything to this family, and what do I have? A condo and a pension. Petrov understood that. My father trusted you with his life, Nico said, and you sold us for a beach house. Your father would have understood. My father is dead, and you helped the kind of men who killed him. The silence was suffocating. Then Nico made a phone call. 2 of his men came in. Gianni didn't resist. He walked out between them without looking back. Sloane didn't ask what would happen to him. She didn't need to. When they were alone, Nico sank into his chair. He looked hollowed out, like someone had scooped the core of him away and left only the shell. You were right, he said. You were right from the start, and I almost didn't listen. You did listen. That's what matters. He looked up at her. Petrov knows his inside man is burned. He's going to escalate. He'll come at us hard. Then we hit him first. Nico studied her. You're something else, Sloane Beckett. Or whatever your name is. My name is Sloane. That part was always real. The strike came 48 hours later, but not from the direction they expected. Petrov didn't send soldiers. He sent information. A dossier delivered by courier to every major news outlet in Miami, containing classified documents linking Sloane to a covert military unit called Task Force Echo. The file alleged she had gone rogue, stolen government secrets, and was wanted for treason. It was the same lie that had forced her underground 14 months ago. Her own commanding officer had framed her to cover an illegal arms deal, and Petrov had somehow obtained the fabricated evidence. Sloane's phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was Nico. We need to talk. Now. She drove to the estate knowing it might be a trap. Nico was standing behind his desk. The dossier spread out in front of him. Vince was in the corner, hand on his weapon. Task Force Echo, Nico said. Black Ops, off the books. Military intelligence. The file says you stole a hard drive containing the identities of undercover operatives and sold it to the highest bidder. That's a lie. The Pentagon doesn't seem to think so. There's a federal warrant with your name on it. My commanding officer, Colonel Harding, sold the drive to fund a private arms deal in Yemen. When it blew up, he needed a fall guy. I was convenient. She kept her voice steady, but her hands were fists at her sides. The proof that clears me is on that drive. Harding's communications, his bank transfers, everything. And right now, that drive is in Petrov's possession. He bought it from Harding 6 months ago as leverage against the US government. So you came to Miami to find it. I came to Miami because Tommy needed the hospital here. Finding the drive was secondary. Surviving was primary. She looked at him. I didn't plan on meeting you, Nico. I didn't plan on any of this. Nico was quiet for a long time. He picked up a photograph from the dossier, a military ID photo of Sloane in uniform. She looked younger, harder. You could have told me, he said. Would you have believed me? I don't know. He set the photo down. But I believe you now. He turned to Vince. Get the team ready. We're going to pay Petrov a visit. Sloane shook her head. He'll be expecting a frontal assault. You'll lose men? Then what do you suggest? I suggest you let me do what I was trained to do. Petrov is hosting a private auction tomorrow night on his yacht. The drive will be there. He's selling it to the highest bidder. I go in undercover, swap the drive, and get out alone? On a boat full of Russians? I work better alone. Not this time. Nico walked around the desk, stopping in front of her. He was close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes. I'm going with you. You'll blow the entire operation. I'll be your distraction. Petrov knows my face. He'll be so focused on figuring out why I'm there that he won't notice you slipping into the vault. It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was the kind of plan that worked in movies and got people killed in real life. Fine, she said. But you follow my lead, my rules. Nico raised an eyebrow. Nobody gives me rules. Tonight, I do. His lip twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. I'm starting to think you enjoy bossing me around. I'm starting to think you enjoy letting me. The yacht was called the Tsarina, a 200-foot floating palace anchored 2 miles off Miami Beach. The auction was by invitation only, attended by arms dealers, corrupt diplomats, and the kind of people who bought and sold nations like stocks. Sloane boarded in a black dress that concealed an eclat-lined corset and a ceramic knife strapped to her thigh. She dyed her hair dark for the occasion and wore contacts that changed her eye color. She was unrecognizable, just another beautiful woman on the arm of a powerful man. Nico boarded separately, arriving by helicopter with Vince at his side, making an entrance that demanded every eye in the room. He was wearing a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than most cars, and he worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, kissing cheeks, and subtly redirecting Petrov's attention. Petrov was holding court on the upper deck, a bear of a man in a white dinner jacket, drinking vodka from a crystal glass. He spotted Nico immediately, and his expression shifted from surprise to suspicion to a calculating kind of amusement. "Caruso," Petrov called out. "I didn't expect you to have the courage to show your face. I never miss a good party, Yuri, especially when the host is selling stolen goods." While they circled each other with words, Sloane slipped below deck. She had memorized the yacht's blueprints, obtained through a hack of the builder's database. The vault was in the master suite, behind a biometric lock that required Petrov's fingerprint. She didn't need Petrov's fingerprint. She had something better. During Gianni's interrogation, they'd recovered a set of biometric molds Petrov had distributed to his inner circle for emergency access. Sloane pressed the silicone pad to the scanner. Green light. The vault opened. The drive was there, inside a titanium case, smaller than a deck of cards and worth more than every life on this boat combined. She plugged in her verification device. The files loaded. Colonel Harding's bank transfers, the Yemen communications, the proof of her innocence, all of it. She swapped the drive for an identical decoy loaded with corrupted data and sealed the vault. Total time inside, 90 seconds. She was halfway back to the stairwell when the door at the end of the corridor opened. Two of Petrov's guards stood there, weapons drawn. "Wrong floor, miss," the larger one said. Sloane smiled, the practiced, vacant smile of a woman who'd had too much champagne. "I was looking for the bathroom. The bathroom is upstairs. Silly me." She turned, and as she passed the first guard, she moved. The ceramic knife was in her hand and against his throat before his partner could blink. She used the first man as a shield, backing the second against the wall. "Drop the gun," she said, quietly. The gun hit the carpet. She zip-tied both men to a pipe in a utility closet and took the stairs two at a time. On the upper deck, the situation had deteriorated. Petrov's men had surrounded Nico. She could hear shouting in Russian and Italian. She pushed through the crowd to find Nico and Petrov standing face to face, a loaded pistol between them. "You brought a spy into my house," Petrov hissed, his face contorted with rage. "You think I don't have cameras? I think your cameras just showed you a woman getting lost looking for the ladies' room," Nico said, but his jaw was tight. He'd been made. "Kill them both," Petrov ordered. Sloane's voice cut through the tension. "You might want to reconsider that, Yuri." She held up her phone. On the screen was a live feed from the engine room, where a block of C4 was taped to the fuel line. Below it, a digital countdown, 0457, 0456. "I rigged your boat while your crew was setting up the champagne fountain," she said. "Call off your men, or we all take a swim we won't come back from." Petrov went pale. He looked at the phone, at his yacht, his $40 million floating palace, and then at the woman who was threatening to sink it. "You're bluffing. Your guards in the utility closet on C deck can confirm I'm not. Radio them." "Oh, wait. They're a little tied up." The countdown hit 0430. Nobody moved. Sloane said, "I already have it, and by now my copies have been uploaded to 3 separate encrypted servers. You kill us, the files go public. Every deal you've made, every official you've bribed, every body you've buried. It all comes out. And your own secrets?" Petrov sneered. "My secrets clear me. Yours bury you. That's the difference." Petrov looked at Nico. Nico shrugged, the picture of casual menace. "She's smarter than both of us, Yuri. I'd take the deal." The silence stretched for an eternity. Then Petrov lowered his hand. "Get off my boat," he growled. "With pleasure." Sloane pocketed her phone and walked past him without flinching. Nico fell into step beside her, and together they descended the gangway to the waiting speedboat. They didn't speak until they were a mile from the yacht, skipping over the black water of Biscayne Bay, the wind tearing at their clothes. Then Sloane exhaled, the kind of breath that carries a year's worth of fear and adrenaline and sleepless nights out of the body. "Is there actually a bomb on that boat?" Nico asked. "Yes. Are you going to blow it?" She looked back at the Tsarina, glowing like a ghost on the dark water. She pulled the detonator from her clutch, held it for a moment, then dropped it over the side of the boat. It disappeared into the wake. "No, I got what I came for." Nico watched her, his hair wild from the wind, his suit soaked with salt spray. He looked nothing like the composed Don she'd thrown onto a restaurant floor 5 days ago. He looked real. "What happens now?" he asked. "I send the files to the Pentagon. Harding goes to prison. My name gets cleared." And then she trailed off, looking out at the Miami skyline, all those lights reflected in the water like a city doubled. And then, Nico moved closer on the bench seat. The boat rocked gently beneath them. And then Tommy gets his transplant. He gets better. He goes to school. He has a life, and you? I don't know, I haven't thought past keeping him alive. Nico reached over and took her hand, his fingers laced through hers, rough against her skin, warm against the ocean cold. Stay, he said, not a command. A question, dressed up in a single word. You're a criminal, Nico, and you're a fugitive. We're a matching set. He turned her hand over, running his thumb across the calluses on her palm. I'm not asking you to love me, Sloane. I'm asking you to let me earn it. She looked at him. She thought about the 14 months of running, the cold apartments, the fake names, the bone-deep loneliness of being nobody. She thought about Tommy's drawing on the wall. Someday, maybe someday was now. You break your promise about Tommy, she said quietly, and I will end you. I know. He grinned, and it was the most dangerous, beautiful thing she'd ever seen. He pulled her in and kissed her. It was nothing like the violence that had brought them together. It was slow, deliberate, like a man handling something he knew was precious and volatile. She kissed him back, and it tasted like salt water and second chances. They pulled apart as the boat neared the dock. The Miami skyline blazed ahead of them, all glass and light and possibility. One condition, Sloane said, straightening her dress. Name it. I'm not your consultant. I'm not your employee. If I stay as your equal, your partner, or I don't stay at all. Nico looked at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a real laugh, and shook his head. You just threatened a Russian arms dealer with a bomb, stole classified intelligence, and you're negotiating terms with me on a speedboat. Is that a yes? That's a hell yes. 3 weeks later, Sloane sat in the waiting room of Miami General while Tommy was wheeled into surgery. The surgeon was the best in the country, flown in from Johns Hopkins. The room was private. The bills were paid. Nico sat beside her, his hand on her knee, reading a battered paperback of Neruda's poems while she pretended not to be terrified. He's going to be fine, Nico said without looking up. You don't know that. I know that kid survived 11 years with you as a sister. He can survive anything. She almost smiled. Almost 6 hours later, the surgeon came out and told her the transplant was a success. Sloane didn't cry. She didn't cry in front of people. She walked into the hallway, leaned against the wall, and pressed her fists against her eyes until the shaking stopped. When she looked up, Nico was standing there. He didn't say anything. He just opened his arms. She stepped into them and let herself be held for the first time in longer than she could remember. Thank you, she whispered into his chest. You did this, Sloane. Not me. You fought for him. I just wrote the check. She pulled back and looked at him. The man who ran Miami. The man she'd flattened on a restaurant floor. The man who kissed her on a speedboat and read poetry when he thought nobody was watching. I'm staying, she said. I know, and I'm redecorating your study. It looks like a funeral home. He laughed, and the sound echoed down the hospital corridor, warm and bright and completely unexpected in a place like this. Colonel Harding was arrested 2 days later. The files Sloane sent triggered a full investigation. Her name was cleared, her record expunged, and her former unit issued a formal apology that she threw in the trash. Petrov retreated to Fort Lauderdale and never crossed south of the county line again. The word on the street was simple. Miami belongs to Caruso, and standing next to Caruso is the woman who put him on the floor and then saved his empire. They say behind every powerful man is a strong woman, but in Miami, they say something different. They say beside Nico Caruso walks the only person who ever beat him in a fight, and he thanks God for it every single day. What did you think of Sloane's story? Did Gianni get what he deserved? If you enjoyed this tale of betrayal, action, and a love dangerous enough to match, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new story. Share this with someone who loves a good mafia twist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.